You will never see them again. You know that. The person at the grocery store, the driver who saw you stall at the light, the stranger on the subway who watched you spill your coffee. Gone. Forever. Irrelevant. And yet, somewhere in your chest, something tightened. A heat rose to your face. A voice started running commentary. They saw that. They're judging you. They think you're an idiot. A stranger whose name you don't know, whose opinion will never affect your job, your relationships, your life in any measurable way. And your brain treated it like a threat to your survival. Because it was once, and your brain hasn't updated the software since. Go back 50,000 years. Small tribe, roughly 150 people. That number is not random. British anthropologist Robin Dunbar studied the relationship between primate brain size and social group size. He found a consistent pattern. The larger the neocortex relative to overall brain size, the larger the stable social group the species could maintain. For humans, that number is approximately 150, Dunbar's number. The cognitive limit for meaningful social relationships. In that world, 150 people was your entire universe. There were no strangers. Everyone you would ever encounter for your entire life was already in that group. And in that group, your reputation was everything. Not metaphorically, literally everything. Your access, food, your access to mates, your protection from violence, your survival during illness, all of it ran through your social standing. A bad reputation in a tribe of 150 was not embarrassing. It was a death sentence, slow or fast, but eventual. Your brain built a monitoring system running constantly in the background, scanning every social interaction for signs of judgment, a micro-expression that flickered wrong, a tone of voice that seemed off, a pause that lasted half a second too long. Psychologists call this the sociometer, coined by Mark Leary, psychologist at Duke University. His theory, published in the 90s, argued that self-esteem is not a measure of how good you feel about yourself. It is a gauge, like a fuel gauge, measuring your perceived standing in the social group. When the gauge drops, the alarm sounds. That alarm is the sick feeling in your stomach when someone seems to disapprove of you, the heat in your face when you say something wrong in a meeting, the 2 a.m. replay of a conversation from 6 years ago where you could have said something better. That is not neurosis. That is the sociometer doing its job, telling you your standing may be at risk. Correct it before it gets worse, before the tribe notices. Here is the design flaw. The sociometer cannot distinguish between a tribe member and a stranger. It was built in a world where that distinction didn't exist. Every face your ancestor saw was a face that mattered, a face connected to your food supply, your safety, your future. So the system treats every face as potentially significant. The barista who seemed impatient, the colleague who didn't laugh at your joke, the person who walked past without acknowledging you. Each one triggers a small sociometer reading. Each one produces a small anxiety signal, not because they matter, but because your brain cannot confirm that they don't. And uncertainty in a threat detection system defaults to danger. Jonathan Cheek at Wellesley College has studied social anxiety for decades. He found that the people most sensitive to stranger judgment are not the least socially skilled. They are often the most socially skilled, because the same sensitivity that makes you read rooms accurately makes you read rooms constantly. The gift and the curse are the same system. Thomas Gilovich at Cornell University, 90s research. He wanted to measure how much people overestimate how much others notice them. The experiment was simple. He asked college students to wear a t-shirt with a large, embarrassing image on it into a room of other students, then asked them to estimate what percentage of people in the room noticed the shirt. The wearers estimated roughly 50%. The actual number was around 25%. They called it the spotlight effect, the feeling that you are under a spotlight, that others are watching, that your mistakes and flaws are as visible to others as they are to you. They are not. Other people are in their own spotlight, running their own sociometer, worrying about their own shirt. The stranger who watched you spill your coffee forgot about it before you finished cleaning it up, because they had their own embarrassments queued for review. You are the only one keeping score on yourself. In 2003, Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA conducted a brain imaging study. She wanted to know if social rejection activated the same brain regions as physical pain. Participants played a virtual ball-tossing game called Cyberball while in an fMRI scanner. Partway through the game, the other players stopped throwing the ball to them, simply excluded them, no explanation, from a game with people they would never meet, whose names they didn't know. The brain scans showed activation in the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex and the anterior insula, the same regions that activate during physical pain. Being left out of a computer game with strangers registered in the same neural territory as breaking a bone. This is why social rejection feels like it hurts, because to your brain it does hurt, the same way, in the same place, with the same neurological signature. The brain does not grade pain by whether the source is rational. Pain is pain, rejection is rejection. The stranger's glance lands in the same circuitry as a physical blow. Not because you are oversensitive, because you are human. For 99% of human history, your sociometer processed roughly 150 faces, people you knew, people who knew you back, a contained, manageable system. Then, something changed. Cities appeared. You were suddenly surrounded by thousands of strangers. The sociometer had not evolved for this. It processed them all anyway. Then the internet appeared. Then social media. Suddenly your sociometer was processing the implicit judgment of millions. Every post, every photo, every opinion expressed publicly submitted to an audience your brain registers as the tribe. But it isn't the tribe, it's strangers. And strangers in a tribal brain are treated as potential tribe members, whose approval matters, whose silence feels like rejection, whose single negative comment can override 100 positive ones. Because negative social signals in the original environment were more dangerous than positive ones were valuable. One enemy in a tribe of 150 could get you killed. 10 allies couldn't always prevent it. So the brain weights negative signals disproportionately, always has. Social media handed that system a fire hose and called it connection. You already know the stranger doesn't matter. You've told yourself this many times. It has not worked because the sociometer does not report to your rational mind. It reports to your emotional system. It fires before your prefrontal cortex has had time to evaluate whether the threat is real. By the time you think this doesn't matter, the cortisol is already in your bloodstream. The flush is already in your face. The replay is already cued. Telling yourself to stop caring is like telling yourself to stop flinching when someone throws something at your face. You can practice, you can reduce the response. You cannot eliminate the reflex, because the reflex is not a bad habit, it is a biological inheritance. The research on this is consistent. Cognitive reappraisal, changing how you think about the situation, reduces the intensity of the response. It does not remove the response. The goal is not to stop caring. The goal is to care accurately. You have spent real time worrying about what strangers think. Not hours, years. Aggregate the small moments. The outfit you didn't wear. the opinion you didn't share, the room you didn't walk into, the version of yourself you kept smaller because a stranger whose name you never learned might have found it too much. Your ancestors needed that system. It kept them in the group. The group kept them alive. You are not in that group. You are in a city of millions, on a platform of billions, where the tribe is infinite and therefore meaningless as a measure of safety. The sociometer is still running, still scanning, still sending alerts for threats that no longer exist at a scale it was never designed to handle. You cannot turn it off, but you can finally understand what it is, a smoke detector in a world that no longer has fires, still going off, still certain it's protecting you, still wrong about almost everything it's pointing to.
Robin Dunbar spent his career mapping the limits of human connection. 150 people, that's the number, that's the system. Everything beyond that, your brain is improvising, applying rules built for 150 to a world of 8 billion. The stranger who saw you stumble, the follower who didn't like your post, the room that went quiet when you walked in. None of them are the tribe. None of them hold your survival. None of them are keeping score. Only you are. The most radical thing you can do is not to stop caring what people think. You can't. It's structural. The most radical thing is to choose whose opinion actually gets a seat in that tribe of 150, and ask yourself honestly whether the strangers currently living rent-free in that space were ever invited or just walked in while the door was open.